everyone, from me, Brent Graham, Thursday night, 9 o'clock, time for the Handicap Rugby Chat That Matters. We're cutting the shows a bit this week. We've done a special Women's World Cup Rugby the last couple of weeks, but we're going to combine it into one show. But I've got the man himself who has taken us through those first two rounds of Women's World Cup Rugby with me in the studio, so to speak. Harry, good to have you on the show, man. How you doing?
How's it, BG? Yeah, let's try to lose a little less money this week.
That's it. I mean, just quickly touching on last week, I mean, fortunately, the URC, I did okay. I had my main bet on the Sharks there and the Lions overs points. In fact, I was on Ulster overs points. That arrived quite nicely. But my word, that Canada game, who was Canada on the handicap against? Italy, was it, eh?
Yeah.
I think I got minus 11.5. I mean, they were leading by 17, and I just knew they needed an extra score. But when you're in the 79th minute and the other team's 22, in particular in the ladies' game, you don't expect a team to go sort of work their way downfield all the way to score, do you?
No, never. I'll stick by my analogy of the betting the hounds versus betting the horses. It's actually very tricky. And what I do think is the ruthlessness of sticking points on another team, sometimes it's not there in the women's game. Sometimes they just kind of go, okay, we're good by 20. It's fine. Don't have to push to 40.
No, that's it. And hi to the guys in the live chat. We've got Oracle Excel. We're using his Excel channel there to watch. I know Oracle, haven't had much contact from him. His phone is broken. Some would say that's a blessing, but not me, Oracle, don't worry. And Mark joining us in Asia, and Alex saying, don't remind me about that Canada game. But, I had a couple of afternoon losses. But you know what? You've got to take the good with the bad in betting, Harry. I mean, I went on a nice run where I sort of won games late, and you've got to expect that to turn, and you can't get too grumpy when it does. Chris also joining us in the live chat. Capped on pretty quick, boarding the unders. Yes, Chris, I'm with you there. I'm looking very much at the unders. I did lose the New Zealand unders, but then hit quite nicely on the Fiji-South Africa game. But let's get cracking with the URC because we've got plenty of games to talk about. And I know you and I have both got hard closes for different reasons. You've got a business meeting, and I potentially have load shedding, although I'm going to whisper it. I have been taken off the grid by the looks of it, so I haven't been suffering too badly. But let's have a look at the United Rugby Championship. And the first game is an interesting one, Harry. Benetton against the Blue Bulls. And here we got Benetton underdogs at home. Now, they have performed well at home this season. Up against the Bulls side that's been very disappointing the last couple of weeks. Big defeat to Glasgow 2 weeks ago. And then last week going down again to Munster quite convincingly. This to me looks a tough game. We've got a points line of 49.5. But I thought the bookies got this handicap pretty much spot on.
Yeah, I'd probably tread carefully here. This is actually, the Bulls are probably why the Oracle broke his phone. He's probably screaming at Jake White. I always watch on a Jake White team. Jake White takes over the team, everything about it. Overtime, Brumbies, overtime, box. I always watch what he says and I analyze it, not because of the truth of it, but because it tells me something about what's going to happen the next week. So he came out and said, we're very poor against Munster, very poor against Glasgow. But he said we were not out-muscled, and that's my key there. When he says we're not out-muscled, then they were out-muscled. So now I'm going to think they're going to bring some muscle. And one thing I think is the whole Marcel Coetzee offload parade, which worked last year, has been worked out, and I think Jake knows that. But the thing about a Jake White team, it doesn't always start well, and sometimes it can be worked out. But then I think he makes adjustments. He overdoes things for a while, but then I think he makes adjustments. So I think this is the moment where the season shifts, and I'm going to peg this as that game. Other thing is the stats actually start to make sense in round 6. Rounds 1 through 4 or 5, doesn't matter, but I think Benetton's leaking too many tries. 24 tries, 20 tries leaked in. That's a bad stat. I don't like the fact that they did that at home as well. I would say this game is going to be won and lost on the turnovers, the breakdown. The Bulls have lost 60 turnovers in 5 rounds and only won 27 back because they're really excellent loose forwards. The Marcel Lowe trio has been focused on the quick, keep the ball alive, offload, and I think they're going to return to a muscle game here, and they're going to muscle Benetton, and I don't think Benetton has the muscle to withstand it. So I would take the Bulls on this one, but I wouldn't empty the sock drawer.
Right, yeah, fair enough. Something maybe to the tactics they used against Leinster in that semi-final last year, where it was just
yes, yeah.
ripped. And yeah, the only thing is, geez, I tell you, the one frustrating thing for me, Harry, last week, I had the Bulls over 20.5 points against Munster. And it never looked good. But they scored a couple of tries in the last 20 minutes. So they really had a good chance to deliver that bet for me. And then they had those pick and goes close to the line for what seemed like about 5 minutes. And I was just going, guys, if at first you don't succeed, try something different.
It was identical. I thought at one point my stream was on a loop.
Repeat. Fareed coming in here saying Jake White and the Bulls clearly overrated and predictable. Benetton will cover quite a bit of support there for Benetton in the live chat. So interesting that, boys. We've got 49.5 points line as well. I don't have a firm view on that one, but I do have quite a firm view later on the points line. So we'll get to that. But let's move on to the second game of the weekend. We got Connacht here at home, -6.5 against Scarlets. And I just want to quickly pop onto the good for the game for them because, Harry, I always handicap these games at the start of the week. And I'm still, the ones involving just the overseas teams, not as much. But I made this Connacht -11.5. I was quite surprised to see this handicap. What are your thoughts?
This is an interesting match. I think it's a must-win for Connacht. They're 9 points off the sacred 8th log place, so they have to win. They're in Galway. It's going to be spitting weather. My sister actually was just in Galway, and every picture she sent to me, every video, it was like people were getting knocked over. The sheep were getting knocked over by the wind. So it's going to be a windy match. Points differential for Connacht is actually very bad. They're -64 in the comp. They're not good ball in hand. They have the fewest offloads. They have the fewest try assists, 2. And they're getting 13 penalties a game. So that's a problem. However, they've only faced tougher teams. Connacht has played only teams in the top 8 from last season. So I'm not sure I buy how bad the record looks like right now. On the other hand, Scarlets are missing a big guy, Tongan lock. Sam Luisi just got banned for 4 weeks, 3 weeks if he goes to a class, the naughty ball class, and learns how to tackle better. Interesting, Sam was actually tackling, I think he had the most tackles above the waist in the comp. Actually keep those stats in the URC, it's brilliant.
Can you believe it?
52 tackles above the waist. So, you got Kalama Foni, who's the number 8 there for Scarlets, who's been a beast. I think he's the most meters in contact, 83 meters, 81 times carried. Lee Halfpenny at the back. I think actually Connacht is actually playing very badly so far, but the weather is really brutal in Galway when it comes up, when the wind blows. So, for me, I would like this match to watch just as a fan. I'm not going to put any money on this one. It just seems like you have 2 records that don't make sense. And Connacht is going to play, I think, the best game of the season. So if that helps someone in their wagering, fine. I think you're going to have the best performance from Connacht because for them it's a must-win at home.
Yeah. I'm going to sort of stick to my guns here. The fact that I handicapped this game -11.5, and I will go for Connacht there on the handicap. As you say, the weather there in go out. Was it a week or so ago? The weather actually looked quite good, but by the second half, it was pouring with rain, and it seems like rain is just never very, very far away there. Fareed coming in, Scarlet's too one-dimensional attack, but with the bad weather, it's going to be close, right? So, certainly.
And they have a good scrum, Brent. Scarlets are the best scrum in the comp so far. They're 25 scrums and haven't lost any on their own scrum feed. So, this could be a problem for Connacht.
Right, and Mark, who says Connacht for him the bet of the week, I'll probably stop short of saying that. He says it will be windy as well. That's interesting. And guys, certainly as we get into the Women's Rugby World Cup, if you've got any weather forecasts there, Matt, let us have them in the live chat when we get onto that, because all I'm waiting for is a bit of bad weather, and I'm all over the unders there in the Women's World Cup. Right, Harry, let's move on to the next game. It's Zebra, who probably dropped off the pace a little bit compared to how they started, plus 14.5 against Edinburgh. Edinburgh, of course, last week with a convincing victory at home. They needed that after some disappointing results against South African sides. What do you make of this handicap?
No, actually, I think I'm going Edinburgh on this one. It's at the Stadio Sergio Lanfranchi, which is a great name for a stadium. But the DJ there is crazy. He's playing AC/DC, Ozzy Osbourne, Scorpions. He's going way back into the 80s hair bands. And I think it's messing up his team. They conceded 22 tries. But Edinburgh is building good platforms. They're not relying on the magic offload, the magic break. That's why I think that actually they're not finishing teams yet, so they have a strange record of 2-3, but they're plus 62 on points, and they're 26 to 12 tries. I think it's going to be a bit of a murder here in Italy.
And I must say, just looking at the points line here, 53.5, what I've noticed a bit of a trend with Zebra games at home as well. You know, they're quite high scoring this season, I think. I know the Sharks are something like 42-37.
Yeah.
Often what happens is, in this case, Edinburgh get out well in front, and then Zebra, give them credit, they try as they keep going and they score those couple of consolations. So, if anything, I haven't looked at conditions on this game, but if I certainly do check that out before betting. But I do like the points overs here, and I might be looking for a somewhere around a 52.5, 51.5, hopefully.
I mean, it's been very warm in that region. I think in the border of France and Italy today, it was 25s. Yesterday, 25 and sunny. So it could be good conditions to score for Edinburgh. And Edinburgh's got some punch.
Right. Well, Oracle is going for Zebra on the handicap. He loves an underdog, old Oracle. And Fareed reckons Edinburgh will be too much for Zebra up front here. Probably fair comment there as well. Let's go on to the next game. This game has had quite a lot of interest this week, Harry. It's the Lions up against the Glasgow Warriors. Lions open minus 4.5. I handicapped this game minus 4.5, but in retrospect, I'm going to say that I was wrong. I think the handicap is probably close to right now. If anything, I expect this might still go out another couple of points in the Lions' favour. Glasgow well beaten by the Sharks last week, and the Lions beaten by Ulster. But yeah, they put up a pretty good fight.
It's rainy. Is it raining in Josie right now?
You know what? It's threatening, and it's weird. Like 30 kilometers from me the other day, there was incredible hailstorms. We had nothing.
Yeah.
Tonight there was big thunder and a little bit of rain. So it is something to keep an eye on. There could potentially be rain, and if there is, it might change things. Although I must say the drainage normally at the Emirates is normally pretty good.
Yeah.
And I've seen the conductor's been keeping a close eye on the weather. I mean, he lives 60 k's from me, but he phones me every morning for a weather update in Joburg. He's like waiting to pounce on these bookies. And as far as I can see, that it's actually, I don't think it's going to be bad on Saturday. I think it's going to be decent.
Yeah. No, I was asking because, I mean, Glasgow has a very, very, very bad scrum, probably the worst scrum in the comp. So if there's any drop balls, it's going to be a problem for them, and they're going to be stuck in the 22 a lot. The Lions are actually an interesting team because they've been playing better than they are. They really don't have the stats to support their entries in the 22 and their finishing. They're just doing it so well. You got Gianni and Frankie and Marius Henko being very tidy and surgical. They're finishing the chances really well, but they're defensively average. So I'm actually thinking this could be a little bit more heavy weather than maybe it looks. The Scottish don't like fast tracks. You know, that's why they live in Scotland. So, but they will concede a lot of points on a dry track, and if their scrum goes under, then they're going to be up against it. I just wonder when the Lions remember to be kittens again. They're kind of playing out of their skull so far, and I'm not sure I trust them on the money side. I mean,
yeah, you're not sure they're going to maintain that. So, I mean, the bet I really fancy here, Harry, and I mean, yes, weather something got to take into account, and also the fact that Glasgow at altitude are probably going to slow the game down a bit. But 50.5. I mean, you think of last week's game. What was it, 76? What was it, 39, 37? So it was like 76 points or whatever in last week's game. I'm saying even if Glasgow slow it down a bit, this 50.5 is potentially a runner, unless, just put the proviso, unless there's a massive thunderstorm or something during the game.
Yeah.
Conditions are reasonable. I'll be going all over this points line, I believe, at 50.5.
I think you're right on that. I think you're right on that. Yeah, on the points. That's where I'd go on this match. I'd probably go on the number of points.
Yeah, your Hun coming in, he's saying Lions over 29.5 is his bet on it. And Mark agreeing with Oracle there, saying Lions to win by 15. Plus, the Lions are striking me as one of those sides that even if they do get well ahead, they're not going to keep the foot on the... You know what I mean? I kind of just get the feeling they're always going to let the other team score a few points.
Yeah. They're exactly average on every stat. So defensively and on attack, they're exactly 8 or 9. And so I just think they're playing really clever, and I'm not sure they can really overpower or just run around people.
Right. Well, I'm interested to get your views on this game because the Sharks certainly turned in their best performance in some time last week, winning by 28 points there against Glasgow. And the first half, they looked a bit shaky. I had a lot of money riding on them, and I wasn't too happy with them, but they delivered in the end with some ease. They play Ulster side, who, of course, got the win against the Lions at altitude. And here we have exactly where I handicapped this game, Harry. I said Sharks minus 6.5, so I'm not seeing any obvious value here.
Ulster's a really good team. Ulster's a very, very good team. So again, I'm saying stats matter at round 6. To be plus 67, they've already played Leinster. To have your tries be 25 to 15, that's a good team. And they're 4-1 for a reason, and they actually played pretty well in that one loss against Leinster. So I think the Sharks are going to have a serious battle. But the heavy hitters, Sia coming back in, Vincent Chichuka, Oxbongi, Ibn, Jaden, all the regular crew. I think I want Fassi to tackle a little bit better and position better at the back, because I think he's given up about 3 or 4 tries by himself. But I think Sharks win this because of that battalion in the front. But I don't see anyone running away with this. I'm thinking that the line you said is really, really awkwardly correct. So, yeah.
And then Johan Esterhuizen's bet, and that Johan will probably be priced at around the 18 to 10 mark, maybe 16 to 10 Sharks by 1 to 12. That's your option. The only thing I always say, Harry, about this bet, you get a decent price, and it's, you're banking on a close game. But I always say with this bet, you can never relax. You're always one score away from losing this bet, because
nice.
So it's one of those. But it is it's certainly a bet I do take, particularly if you think the handicap is very well set. Then it's not a bad one. Sharks with box will be too much for Ulster, said Farid. And Darren just mentioning there that it's raining all day Saturday, so the forward grunt will be critical. And I'll have to say, guys, that I thought that Evan Etzebeth's performance was one of the best performances I've ever seen across the board anywhere. He just did absolutely everything. Phenomenal performance by him there. Points line of 47.5. Henrik Swart will tell you, if it's raining in Durban, don't be afraid to go overs. Funny enough, Durban, and I've seen this happen a few times as well, the rain is almost not as bad as that hot humidity that they get there sometimes. And we've actually I've seen a few Sharks Bulls game I can recall, I think in the Curry Cup, where it was pouring with rain and the points just flowed. So just be careful there on the points lines, guys. Right, let's move on to the next game. Here we got a handicap where I set this a bit higher as well. We got Leinster minus 12.5 here against Munster, and a points line of 47.5.
No, I mean, for me, this is actually going to be a problem for Munster. They might get really towelled. This is a nice old ancient rivalry, and they always talk it up, but there's something very wrong with Munster right now. No matter what Jake White says, Munster's they're not looking good. Again, their tries are 11 to 10 total for the season. They're just barely plus 8 points differential. Leinster hasn't really even hit their straps yet. So I think, I think it's going to be more like a 20-25 point win, maybe even more.
Yeah, and I'm interested. I think I saw some comments that conditions could be reasonably good. In that case, I might be looking at Leinster points as well. But I did handicap this game minus 16.5. So my initial thought was Leinster on the handicap here at 12.5 looks a decent play. Right, let's move on to the next game. It's Cardiff plus 5.5. Cardiff have been doing pretty well. Had a couple of good home wins, and they play against a Stormers side that I think let was it the Ospreys last week back into it a little bit to grab the draw. And was it Ospreys or Scarlets that the Stormers played last week? I think it was Ospreys, eh?
Ospreys, yeah. The big weather game, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And I mean, probably, but ultimately they play well. And here we got Cardiff plus 5.5, and a Stormers a total points line of 49.5.
I'm so useless at tipping anything about Western Province or Stormers because my brain doesn't work right. But no, I think there's not much you can do with that weather last week in Ospreys, and yet Mani Lebok hit a kick when it was like he was sitting in a shower. I mean, it was coming down that bad. So they might take something away from that they were able to draw. But I would go bonus point Stormers win here. I think when you look at the tries conceded, Stormers only 7, which is the best in the comp. They're very stingy. I think Cardiff's going to struggle to score tries against the physicality of this outfit. But again, I'm saying take everything I ever say about Stormers or VP with a big asterisk.
Right. Well, Oracle going for Cardiff on the board, so once again going for the underdogs there. But yeah, I'm a little bit. This is a game that I'll probably look at conditions close to the time. If I think Cardiff play on a 4G pitch or 5G pitch, I'm not too sure, but I think it is, if conditions look decent, I might be looking at some sort of an overs play. But all in all, I'd have to say I think the bookies have got this one pretty close to spot on. Let's go on to our last URC game then. It's the Dragons. They lost to Cardiff, was it last week? They were a bit disappointing. I know that quite a few guys were on them on the plus there. Dragons plus 2.5 against the Ospreys in this Welsh derby. And we've got a points line of 48.5, Harry.
Oh, yeah, this is actually a kind of a tough one too. But Ospreys do have actually a better season going. I think the Dragons are a minus 70 on points differential, and after 5 games, that starts to matter. Their tries are 6 to 19. So, yeah, you would think Ospreys at 13 to 15 tries, just a two try differential. They're going to find a way to win this one. I don't think it comes down to a kick, which the line is set on just basically a kick wins it. I think it'd be more like a try, converted try, 6 to 7. Ospreys win.
Ospreys, so a little bit of value there on the minus. Right, well, that brings us to the end of the URC. Let's quickly chat a little bit of Bunnings NPC. Obviously, just got the one game to talk about, Canterbury up against Wellington. I do have conductors' comments on this one, so no pressure on you at all, Harry, if you don't have any views on this. But any thoughts on the final? I've seen the line appears to have come in slightly. I saw minus 5.5, and I'm generally seeing minus 4.5 now.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with one player in this one, TJ Perenara. I think TJ Perenara was overlooked in the All Black side, even though I think Fakatava and Finlay Christie were not really playing that well. So I think you're going to have someone, with the red arse trying to play hard. TJP, I think, he's talking about how the fact that Wellington were beaten by Canterbury earlier in the season, 43 to 10, but draws a bunch of differences and distinguishes between those two matches. I actually think I'm going Wellington on this by probably about 5 points. I think they actually have really gelled, and along the way, they've actually found something. They won the Ranfurly Shield. They demolished Auckland. They're looking very smooth, and they got some real finishers. But I'm going to say TJ Perenara is the difference. I think he's the one who could actually take over one of these games, and especially in a final, I think his savvy, his brain is going to take over here.
Right. Well, Farid, agreeing with you there on the plus. Let's see what the conductors' views are on this one.
Afternoon, Brenty. Coming to you from a very sunny and warm Pretoria. Absolutely gorgeous day in the capital. To give you my insights into the Bunnings NPC final, it's been an absolute crack of a competition. Really enjoyed watching it. Really enjoyed betting on it. And now we come to the business end. Canterbury versus Wellington in Christchurch. Luckily, conditions look good in Christchurch for this game. And absolutely should be a humdinger. Canterbury yet to taste defeat this year in Christchurch. Been absolutely flawless against arguably one of the form teams of the comp. Wellington, 9 wins on the bounce, including an absolute great victory in Napier. Taking the Ranfurly Shield against Hawke's Bay. So we come down to the betting odds for this game. It's been coming down a little bit. I think you can start looking at about minus 4.5, probably minus 5.5 now. I probably won't be looking at this cap, or I won't be looking at this cap. I really think with the form that Wellington are carrying into this game, they can give the Cantabs a hell of a go in Christchurch. The bet that I really like is under 49.5. This would have arrived in the last 9 out of 12 NPC finals. I was super impressed with Canterbury's defense last week. Really keeping Bay of Plenty down to minimal points. And likewise, I was impressed with Wellington's defense against a very, very dangerous Auckland side in Wellington last week. So, like I said, under 49.5 gets my votes. I do think that both teams could be quite nervous. I think Wellington will be probably more nervous in this fixture. 7th appearance in the NPC final, yet to taste victory. So I think they could, take that first 20, 30 minutes to find their feet. So the under 49.5 gets my votes. Thanks, lads. Let's smash the bookies. Cheers, boys. Enjoy the weekend.
He looks like one of the original founders, came in a wagon to Bloemfontein at this point.
I'll tell you what. The only thing is, I had to do an authentication test because he didn't have a beer in his hand. I don't think I've seen that before. That must have been recorded at about 8 a.m. this morning, I reckon. But conductor's views there very much on the unders. And he did ask me to add one thing. He actually sent me a message. He said, Pickerel is on the whistle as well, and I know the boys all say when Pickerel he'll destroy a game with his whistle. So they're very much an unders ref. So the guys are going for the unders there. See if anything. It's attack against defence with Wellington having the ability to score consecutive tries. Yeah, it should be a good game. It might be. I don't know if it clashes with any of the Women's World Cup games, but yeah, it could be a good one to watch. Just to mention, guys, Gallagher Premiership betting preview. Push that show out tomorrow to 4:00, just due to an engagement that I've had. But we will have a look at that and just run through the fixtures there as well and have a look at the betting. That's the end of the Bunnings. So there's one more thing for us to talk about, and that, of course, is the Women's Rugby World Cup. Thoroughly enjoyed it so far. It's been frustrating at times, costly at times, and I'd say overall I'm probably a little bit down, although I did well in the first week. I gave quite a bit back the next week. Harry, first of all, if I could just ask you, I haven't bought the outright betting up, but any changes to your views of last week? Are we looking here at a sort of England-New Zealand final with Canada the possible spoilers?
Yeah, probably the team that has slipped a little bit in the estimation is England. They seem to have. I'm not sure they show as quick a team as they do in the North. I think, and it's something I noticed when I was in New Zealand and I played there. It's very heavy fields, and they don't have the same drainage infrastructure as the North. So in some ways, I think New Zealand actually is now the quickest team left. And so, yeah, I'm not sure. I might flip the favorites now and say New Zealand number 1, England number 2, and then Canada still with a big chance. Actually, I want to say I never talk about referees, and you know that if you read my stuff on the Roar, or if you listen to my podcast, I just don't talk about the name. I don't use the names of referees because I don't like to. I wish they were not as famous as they are in rugby. But I have noticed something that referees whose the surname starts with a P, horrible referees. Very tough to play with. So just here's a rule of thumb. And I noticed that in the Women's World Cup, the refereeing standard is actually quite high. And I wondered about that, and I wondered if something about women referees and how they're interacting with the players. It seems very respectful. They're not grandstanding. They're not trying to be the star. They're letting the game flow. It reminds me of Jonathan Kaplan, what he said on our shows. Your job is really to help the players create the kind of game the fans come to see. Your job is not to be a policeman or whistle everything. So it's been enjoyable, and I know you've enjoyed the games. And it's sometimes you have stereotypes about women's rugby. In this case, I think it's not true. I think it's actually quite good rugby to watch, except for a few of the teams. Maybe Japan is still struggling a little bit, but yeah, it's good rugby.
That certainly has been, and we'll get into the matches now. Australia -9.5 against Wales. While you're looking at that, I'm just having a look at the table. I think the reality is that these teams will probably both go through. There is a chance that Fiji could get a bonus point in their match against France, in which case Australia and Wales, would have something to play for because they're both on, I think, 4 points at the moment. So I mean, there's something on this game, although both will probably go through, and both of them are probably going to play have a fairly tough quarterfinal, I suppose. And here we got a 9.5 points Australia favourite.
No, you got it exactly right. They're both on 4 points. So you would imagine actually kind of a conservative game here. People are making business decisions. They'll get injured. Don't do anything too crazy. But it's more a positioning of how they will be in the reseeded format. So in the reseeded format, you start the playoffs, the quarterfinals, with literally, the top 3 that actually win their pool will be seeded as 1, 2, 3, and then you have from 4 through 8. So really, Australia and Wales probably just playing for that. You could almost imagine an agreement where they would, draw, and it would be fine. So, Australia's got a better line out. Wales has a better kickers. So this is kind of a classic puncher versus boxer deal. Australia is all about running and gunning. They got some very lethal finishers. Wales is not scoring maybe as easily, but they are taking their points, and they probably have some of the longest distance on their kicks in the comp, which actually in women's rugby is a big separator. It's a point differentiator if you could put a 50-meter kick in.
I was actually thinking that the other day while I was watching. I was thinking if I had a daughter who played rugby, I would just take her to the field and kick and kick and kick, because it is such a weapon if you could have someone who could get you out of your 22 into the other half comfortably all the time. I see the general sentiment in the chat is that the guys like Wales on the plus here. And I know the conductor, I think there was some early plus 11.5. He seems to think the bookies are perhaps underestimating them. I don't profess to know all the teams and that, but I understand that Australia a couple of red cards, if I'm not mistaken, and injuries. Yeah. So quite a few of the boys seem to think that Wales on the plus, and maybe your draw call could come in here. I'll tell you what, if this game is a draw, there's probably going to be an investigation based on your comments about the draw.
Yeah. So Australia is lacking the hookers, and the lineout's been one of their weapons. But in the women's lineouts, it's not so much on the hooker's throw as it is having a true lineout forward, and Australia does. They have two, actually, but they can actually lift, get up there, and you can hit. There's not as much contest in the air, and they never build two towers ever. So there's always one tower, and there's two lifters, and it's just basically someone's usually about a half a meter above the others. So I think they can withstand the loss of those hookers. But I would think it's going to be I think it might be one of the dullest, cagiest matches that we've watched so far, probably.
Yeah, certainly one that I'll be having a look at the points line. My philosophy, and I sort of had the philosophy early, but I never followed through on it. But I've decided I'm not getting too involved in the handicaps anymore, and I'm going to be looking for opportunities to go unders, and this could be one of those games where I'll be going unders. So certainly, we've had quite a lot of wind in the first couple of weeks. We haven't really had rain in that yet, but I will take a look at conditions and take them into account as well. We've got a massive handicap next up, and I know a lot of the boys on the Good for the Game forum that are quite fancying Scotland here on the handicap against New Zealand. Now, New Zealand, if you were on Wales 46.5 plus 46.5 last week, you landed that bet, but after a slow start, New Zealand got going big time. And they just look like a little bit like the men's team, one of those sides you oppose, at your own risk, if I can put it that way, Harry.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm personally going to put something in here on Scotland. I don't think the pride of the Scottish team, which is quite high, and they're a good team, is going to allow for this type of scoreline. I don't see it. And also New Zealand's resting quite a few of their players, some of their strike runners. So that's also going to affect this. I think there's going to be, a comfortable win, 25-30, 35 max. I don't see 40. I don't see 49 points margin.
Yeah, it seems like that's the sentiment of most of the punters. For Regis agreeing there, Scotland on the plus for sure. And they certainly do have a good pack, because I remember they sort of dominated that second half against Wales as well, and they obviously had Australia under pressure as well. So Scotland on the plus there for him. Let's have a look at the next game. We've got another big handicap here. This is, I found quite a tough one. France minus 35.5 against Fiji. Fiji, well, what a victory they snatched from South Africa last week. Absolutely dramatic. But France really impressed me against England. So I don't know which way to go here on this handicap, Harry.
You could almost say that the French were the most overperforming team so far, like almost a clearly fourth best team in the tournament so far. The problem is they lost their, Dupont. They lost their best player. She's actually had a career-ending injury. So that's horrible for her. Oh, no, sure. Yeah, horrible for her. She'll be in the stands watching. So do they play for her? Is that part of the thing? The French are notoriously up and down in every sport and both genders and every context. So, might they have already played their big match, and this could be a dangerous game. The other thing that's dangerous for the French on this one is the Fijians pose the kind of threats that the French have a hard time handling, which is just athletic superiority. You could see some of those Fijian women just brushing people aside. So you got this sort of wild card team against a notoriously sort of ADD team that comes in and out of games. So, this is not one I would not put very much on the French on this one with that kind of line.
Yeah, this could be a game I might be looking to see what the unders line is. I imagine we'll get a line fairly high in the 50s here, possibly with that sort of a handicap. Let's have a look at the next game then, Harry. Japan plus 17.5 against Italy. Italy actually impressed me in patches last week against Canada. They obviously impressed me in that final try that cost me the bet. But earlier in the game, I thought Italy were very impressive. And then Canada gradually got on top of them. But I don't think they're going to have that worry about Japan. who play, probably quite they look pretty good with ball in hand to me as well. What's going to happen in this one?
Yeah, and there's some motivation here for Italy, depending on how this turns out with the point difference and such. Yeah, they gotta win big, and I think they will win big. I think I'm thinking Italian here on this one. I think they'll do the job. Yeah.
Good Italian win. This is a game I'm going to be a bit wary about going unders on points here, because both of these sides, as I say, I was quite impressed with the way they sort of ran with the ball, and I might be a little bit worried about points in this game, so probably won't go there. Just have a look at some of the comments that I've missed here. Reverend just saying that he likes the other 9, and I've got to agree with you there. And we're talking about the previous game now, about the other 9 who came on for the French 9. I was also very impressed with the substitute there, I must admit.
He's good. Yeah.
And Italy can be niggly buggers there. That's a nice way of putting it. And the Six Nations kept games close. Italy's overs points. Right, let's have a look. How we got 2 games left to go, including one massive handicap. But this is an interesting one. Canada minus 12.5 against the USA. Harry, for me, the USA, the disappointment of the tournament. I expected a lot more from them.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. They're the worst ones coming in terms of expectations not being met. However, these two teams play each other a lot. They know each other. This is a much like a derby match. There's a lot of bad blood. There's going to be our second fighting match. You see the English and French squaring off last week, and actually, really doing some push and shove. You'll see some more of this between the Canucks and the Yanks, and I think this actually will be a tough one in the first half, and then Canada blows it away. That's a nice line. That's actually a well-informed line. That's someone did their homework. You're thinking, for me, probably 2 converted tries though in the end. Probably Canada has the wind of the sails, and they're looking good and feeling good, and they have the best pack in the tournament, I think, really.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the log here. But it's not. I mean, Canada, you would expect the log, the top 3 are going to finish as they are now, because you'd expect all 3 of those teams to get bonus point victories, which means England can't then overtake Canada or New Zealand. So as long as they get the bonus point, I guess they'll be happy. But yeah, I would agree with you guys there. I mean, I'm badly burnt by Canada last week, but it wasn't that they. I mean, they did everything. They should have beaten their handicap last week. So it wasn't a bad. It sounds silly when you lose the bet, but it wasn't that you really thought it was a bad pick. It was more that just the way things worked out on the day. And I think there's every chance Canada can put it together and beat the handicap there. Just having a look at a couple of the live chats. Familiarity is big in this tournament. If you play the other team a lot, it is always close. Yeah. Harry agrees with that one. And Farid going Canada on the minus. Right, Harry, I'll give you a big handicap here. Have you seen the handicaps, by the way? Have you got a feel? How would you handicap England, South Africa? Let me put it to you that way.
England's been scratchy, but at the same time, England, South Africa is always a match, right, in any sport. And these girls actually they like to put the foot on the neck. So I'm actually going to think that I would do a big one. I'd probably go at least 49 for England.
60.5.
Yeah.
I think it's the biggest handicap we've seen in the competition.
Yeah.
The problem is, I don't know what. I almost get the feeling. Look, England, I wasn't impressed with them against France, but they put that burst in against Italy in the second half. I mean, against Fiji, sorry, where they just ran over Fiji. And I don't know if South Africa have sort of run their race, if I can put it that way. I think they were heartbroken. They must be pretty flat after last week. And I wonder if this isn't just going to be an England runaway. But 60.5, sure, but that's big.
Could be a real stampede. The thing is, when you go into this many games in a row at any level, you start to have depth problems. You start to have people who are playing who are not really fully fit. They have, not an injury, but they have something hurting. And that usually shows up in the collisions. So, I would think this is going to be a collision-based first 20 minutes, and then England runs. But it'll all come down to the final part. When you're trying to beat a line of 60, it all comes down to that one offload, that 150-50 ball, the magic ball. Do you catch it or not? Yeah, you win by 50, you feel good, but you don't cover this thing. That's a monstrosity, actually, 60. So, you look at every 10 minutes how much you have to win by, and you start to get nervous.
No, that's it. I know it's like always when New Zealand play like Tonga in the preseason friendly in the men's game, and you get a handicap of like minus 78.5. And it's like, and I mean, sometimes they deliver on it, but the whole thing is when you're taking a minus like this, you're almost backing the other team not to score at all. It's like South Africa probably. I'm imagining the points line on South Africa here will be about 6.5 or something like that.
Yeah, it almost has. You almost cannot have anything happen for South Africa at all, and you're going to mess up your line.
Well, for Reed saying box on the plus, and I'm lucky I got my glasses on because when I first read that, I thought he said box on the board. I thought Oracle was was there making that call. You can't even get it. I mean, I see most of the bookies I've seen haven't even priced up on the outright. They've purely priced up on the handicap. Basically, that obviously no chance there for the box. But yeah, well let's get into the best bets then, Harry. What are your strongest views on this on the weekend? Just a reminder that if you haven't subscribed to our best bet newsletter yet, we're on quite a nice run at the moment. I don't want to even mention the number because I tend to jinx myself then, but we're looking pretty good last week with the Sharks minus 12.5. You can go down below this video and subscribe to that newsletter, which will come out tomorrow. But let's hear what Harry's views are. Harry, maybe a separate one perhaps for the URC and for the World Cup.
Yeah, Women's World Cup. I think the Scottish and the Italians, those are both Six Nations teams with a fair amount of professionals. And I think Italy will cover pretty easily against Japan. I think Japan's finished. And then I don't think Scotland's going to just get run over by the Black Ferns in quite the same way as they're projecting. So URC, actually, I think this is actually kind of a risky weekend overall. But I would say for me, the Bulls they're gonna actually show something this time. And then I against all my Stormer blood in me, deeply ingrained, I'll go with Jake.
Jake White, the Bulls minus 2.5 there. The boys in the live chat just laughing. I suddenly saw 5 comments appear, and I went to go look who it was, and it was one of these bots, like Tinder, flipping. Fortunately, it's quite easy to block them here. But yeah, I must admit, I had a bit of a laugh when I saw that. But Harry, we have made the deadline. We're both comfortably within our 10 o'clock deadline. I'd have to say it was a good thing that it was just you and me, though, because there were a lot of games to chat about. If we had Oracle or Conductor or any of those boys with us, I think it would have been a hard push to get in under the hour.
Yeah, the over-under on that would have been very big.
That's for sure. But Harry, thanks a lot for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you on the show and get your views. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the rugby, and we'll certainly be in contact on Twitter. And to all the boys in the live chat, thanks very much, guys. I hope you enjoyed the show. And look out, as I say, 4 o'clock tomorrow. We'll be doing a Gallagher Premiership, running through that and seeing what the best bets are for the weekend. Chris saying, looking forward to the newsletter. That's the spirit, Chris. Let's hit another winner there. Harry, thanks a lot, mate.
Always a pleasure.